Hello.
Good morning.
First time we're doing this.
It's a little nerve-wracking.
It's a bit. So just to like give everybody some context on like why we're here. We have had 10 episodes go live, ladies, which is crazy. Wow, long way to go, but we've come far. We were talking about how like the guests we've had on and the conversations we've had have been amazing, but we don't get to dig into like real world happening now issues when we're doing it that way. And so we've decided that we are going to do Sunday live streams going forward, because basically like this is like the group chat joining YouTube. Like we're talking about these things like ongoing, so now we're just bringing it all to you, and we hope you like it. So if you're here, let us know where you're tuning in from. I would love to hear where our listeners are based. And we're gonna start with a vibe check. So just to end the week, would love to know, both my co-hosts, how are we doing? So Adama, let's start with you. Vibe check.
I mean, the vibe has deteriorated significantly over the past week, I think.
yeah, we're gonna talk about everything today. But okay, so the vibe's deterioration. Great.
I mean,
Sam, how about you? Vibe check.
I'm like just profound exhaustion.
Okay.
I mean, in fairness, we were out of the country last week and I had a late flight. I landed at like 8 o'clock at night, and then I just got up as normal and went to work the rest of the day. But like I've never gotten back on a sleep schedule. But I don't know what I'm never sleeping again. That's
Yeah.
the vibe
Yeah.
check.
You really need to, well, I don't know, like maybe you do this normally and you can do this week, but like whenever I go on a vacation, I have to have a buffer day between like getting back from vacation and going back to work. Like I need a little break from the vacation and just getting my life back together. If you don't have that, I don't know how you do it.
It was not plausible. We had an event Saturday night, so Sunday was the first day to fly out and back, and
Yeah, that's a lot. And for our listeners, where were you two?
we're all over the place. I mean, Adama was more places. Wherever I am, Adama is there, and then also.
And then many more. Well, we started out, Adama, right? You were in Italy.
I was in Italy. Went with some friends to the island of Sicily, which is absolutely beautiful. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say
I missed the relaxing beach portion of the vacation because I was moving. See, there's still infect boxes in the in the house.
Right. But then you joined her in France.
That's right.
I did. I spent a day in Paris and got to have a little champagne, and then I met the girlies in Versailles for a couple days for an event.
And by the way, because we were dressed up like Marie Antoinette for this like party at Versailles, those outfits, I cannot. We're gonna have to like.
I feel like we should put one on the story. So we did that, and then we spent a couple days in Bordeaux, which was lovely. Like, every now and then when I travel, I'm sitting somewhere having a glass of wine and I immediately start looking up the real estate listings. Like, could I just say like, fuck it and move to Bordeaux? So anyway,
after we should all say fuck it and move to Bordeaux.
Yeah,
after
like 3 Blanc de Blancs, I was checking the real estate prices in downtown Bordeaux, but did that, and then we flew to London and went to go see our lady Beyonce.
That's right. Okay, it rained, right?
It poured.
But was it like still amazing despite the rain? I mean, it's Beyonce.
Oh yeah, like it didn't stop her like one bit, and it's actually funny because in like the beginning of the show, Sam, I think we both, like, everybody noticed it. She was kind of coughing, like every once in a while.
No.
She would like turn her head and she'd cough. Yeah. But I mean, she had just finished shows in New York or out at MetLife, and that's another big stadium, open air, and it rained every single night of that concert.
Oh my God.
it is a 3-hour show, and she is doing intense dance.
She's doing the most.
And she's singing the whole time. I mean, I love, we have lots of love for Taylor Swift. I've seen Taylor Swift now. I've spent thousands of dollars in multiple countries seeing Taylor Swift. She's not doing the same type of show that Beyonce is.
Yeah.
The dance moves that Beyonce is doing while she is literally just belting and singing opera music. It's like, it is a next level performance. And to do that in the rain night after night is it's just like a feat of athleticism, I feel like.
Yeah, no, she's
no. There was one point where I was like soaking wet and just had like wet drippy curls every like really time I knows it was like my hair was just getting curly and wet and it was like little drops flying everywhere. I kept trying to shake it off like a dog, and the chicks next to us were like, hey.
Yeah, I kept you can't just like bend over and like whip all your hair, Sam. There's like 80,000 people.
I whip my hair back and forth. You were just channeling.
I was trying to get like futilely trying to get water out of my face. And at one point I was like, God, this fucking sucks. And then I'm like looking at Beyonce, and then I say to myself, if Beyonce can like tap dance up there in no clothes, you can stand there with your wet drippy drops for another hour.
Oh
you absolutely.
That's amazing. Well, I loved following along on socials with your ladies' fabulous trip. I did right like after you got back, went to Napa. My husband and I celebrated our first anniversary this week. Made it through 1 year. Forever to go, whatever they say.
Proud of you kids.
I was like, ew, why did that just give me like a bile reaction?
I know, marriage, ick. Anyway, but we went back to Carneros in Napa, which was where we did our mini moon last year. And have you ladies stayed there?
I've never stayed there.
We need to do like a little empowerment retreat or something, because
okay.
It's just insane. And the service is amazing. The staff are lovely. The views are gorgeous. And you get like, instead of hotel rooms, you get like a little bungalow. So you're like, and it has a private like backyard with like outdoor tub, outdoor shower, fireplace, lounge chairs. It's incredible. So
we were there. I want to go by myself.
Yeah, no, honestly, like it's a great just like self-care like destination, and it's also very family friendly. So we like saw all these like young families with like kids from.
Now I don't want to go there.
Yeah, maybe Adama, you go to an adult-only resort. Whereas Nathan and I were like, "Oh, this is so cute," because like we want to go every year and like eventually little ones. But yeah, no, Adama, you can go somewhere else. That's fine. We'll come meet you at your like adult-only place. But anyway, so vibe check for me. I'm doing great because I more or less checked out for the week. Definitely did not check my work email. Had the out of office note on. Did a little bit of pod stuff because, this is like fun. But it was kind of hard to ignore the headlines. Like I didn't totally digitally disconnect because like, that's impossible. And that's really kind of like what we want to do with this, new Sunday live stream is talk about like the headlines that hit home, which we'll discuss next, and then dive into kind of the big three. So some topics that just like really, really angered us, disturbed us, made us sad, all of that. And we're trying to basically make this like a little like therapy corner for the internet, because I imagine there's a bunch of girlies out there who feel very similarly, and we'd love to get your thoughts.
Girlies and guilies.
Girlies and guilies. I like that.
Since Sunday morning, we're in our cozies. We're in our Sunday best, and I hope to preview my free t-shirt and sweatshirt collection with all of you over the coming weeks. There's nothing I love more, by the way, if anyone sees this, than a free t-shirt.
I like that. Yeah. Sunday best. Yes, that's the attire for this. Come as you are. Okay, so yes, headlines that hit home, ladies. Let's dive in. Positive or negative, what caught our attention this week? Adama, let's start with you.
Well, I am going to go positive. Watching Coco Gauff win the French Open was chef's kiss. It was absolutely beautiful. She's just Like,
She's
she's
amazing.
like the people's princess. She's so lovely. She's so talented. I love how she stands up for herself. I love how she doesn't let attitudes and, people's nonsense get to her. And she's just like, I'm winning the French Open. I called it a long time ago. I'm winning. Thank you. And I love it. I love it. So that for me was like highlight of the week.
Totally. She is like the definition of grace. And that win in particular, considering everything, I was like, you go, girl.
Yep.
Sam,
Yep.
what about you? What caught your attention?
So Friday, mine is like, boo. So Friday, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that the California State Bar opened a probe into Gloria Allred's law firm.
Yeah.
And, we've discussed on previous episodes, but Adama and I spent quite a bit of time at the outset of the Me Too movement, particularly in the political space. And we're really out front and bare before a lot of folks were, in a way that had people sort of looking at us like, girl, are you okay and possibly crazy? And do you have a job after tomorrow? Anyway, and it was moments that we reached out to any number of women in the women's advocacy legal space, some of whom were friendly and responsive, and some of whom were very dismissive. So I'll just put that out there, like in the ether. Anyway, the State Bar is investigating Gloria Allred for complaints from her customers, her clients, in regards to sexual harassment suits that basically her firm was strong arming them into settlements and agreements that were not in their best interest and or against their will, allegedly, and some other complaints, something to that degree. So they, of course, assert that is absolutely not the case, and they always act in the best interest of clients and with their consent, and all these things are hemmed up, of course, in NDAs and settlements. So it will be interesting to see what the State Bar does with that probe. But that was my Friday night boo.
Slash, like maybe a little bit of like, who?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. For me,
How about you?
I'm gonna go with positive note too, just because like we have plenty of not positive things to talk about today. I am a total Swiftie. I saw yesterday that she went and visited that children's hospital, the Joe DiMaggio Hospital in Hollywood, Florida. And she went to a few different rooms to visit like young girl patients. And there was this one girl who just like broke down, like lost it. And I don't know what she was in the hospital for, but like all these kids were sick and they just like their lives were forever changed by getting to meet Taylor Swift. And I just thought that was awesome. And yeah, it definitely made me tear up a little bit just because we just did an episode 2 interviewing a friend of mine who has a rare disease, which will come out in the coming weeks. And it's just really nice to see people who are like treating other people humanely right now, considering everything going on.
I similarly felt like my whole life changed when I met Jeff Goldblum, but I think that's different.
They're your idol. All that matters. Okay. So, ladies, the big 3. We are going to talk about 3 big topics that came about this week. We're going to start by talking about the ICE raids. I'm sure anybody tuning in knows like what we're referring to, but I don't know, Adama, Sam, why don't we break it down and like explain what these raids are all about, why they're happening, and like why people should care.
Yeah. So ICE is, they are a government entity, and they are not something that's like in our Constitution, but here they are and they exist. They are immigration and customs control enforcement officers, and their sole job at this point seems to be going in and ripping people off the street, not showing warrants, covering their faces, possibly their badges, and terrorizing communities. So, but that's my hot take.
Yeah, and that's really amped up, right? I mean, there was a fear even during the election cycle that this is how the Trump administration would use ICE, not just to sort of performatively tap dance on immigrants, but also
or actually remove criminals like what they say they would do.
what they said.
Right. But, also to target, frankly, blue states that were not Trump supporters. And so that all really came to a head, around June 6th or so. ICE just started actively targeting raids, particularly in LA. And not again at, places where there's high degrees of criminality or they're going after a specific individual, but like workplaces, small local employers, churches and schools. So,
and courtrooms, by the way, where people who are trying to go through the legal process of becoming a US
And do it
citizen,
by the book.
getting the ability just to get a green card to stay while they move towards citizenship.
Yeah.
They
Right.
started
Well, and
going to courts and picking up
yeah,
people.
and it's not even just LA, it's been all over the state. I mean, I even know like one of my coworkers on the way home saw someone's little abuelita like picked up by ICE selling watermelon at a fruit stand. I mean, it is not the people they claim that they are targeting. And so of course, as a result of that, people got very upset. One employer actually locked ICE in his facility to trap them there so his employees could get away. There were protests, significant protests, and of course lots of people got tear gassed and folks got arrested for protesting, just literally for protesting. So on the heels of those protests, Trump sent 4,100 National Guard troops and 700 or so Marines to LA, which it's been decades since there's been that type of deployment. So and the crazy thing is, in spite of all the protesting, which I think we can talk about the protests yesterday in a second, but in spite of all the protesting that's happened all over the last week and led up to now, the only thing that the Trump administration has heard in terms of criticism, they have certainly heard the resounding criticism from what I would classify as political allies and likely potential donors, because what they have pulled back on ICE raids in are places like farms, and hotels, right? Places where there's a political consequence of, him jamming them with the National Guard as a tool. Whereas schools and churches, still not off limits.
Fair game.
Children,
Churches, schools, and courts.
And apparently fruit stands.
What's so crazy to me about all this too is like I was, doom scrolling as I normally do at night. And even Joe Rogan was on his podcast the other day talking about a woman who was wailing because her baby was just like, taken out of her arms as she is getting deported out of all this. And he was saying, like, we're not on the right team or something like that. And I'm like, if Joe Rogan is now saying this,
maybe you shouldn't have given the president a free 3-hour commercial.
Well, then there's that. Yeah.
I feel like this is what do they always say? Like the people who surprise when they vote for the face-eating leopard party, and like then the leopard eats their face.
A hit dog will holler, like my grandfather used to say.
Yeah. And I mean, this is manifested, and again, I do want to talk about the activities and protests yesterday, but this is manifested in all sorts of just egregious upping of the ante in the kind of political community all over the country all week. It was over the weekend, I think there were 2 Democratic lawmakers that were targeted by someone pretending to be a police officer in Minnesota. And went to their home and shot and killed the Senate pro tem in their home, her husband and their dog, and then shot another senator and his wife, who are thankfully recovering. But I mean, just, really the conditions right now are so amplified in a way that's dangerous. I mean, certainly unproductive, but the vitriol is just far too high. And unfortunately, the response from this administration seems to be to ignore it.
Well, you should look at the comments if you go on X underneath some of these posts about how these people have passed away. They were public servants, and the comments are absolutely repugnant. And I feel like,
what are people saying? I don't have X. It's like
they deserved it. Like things along the lines of they deserved it. Who cares? Whatever. There's also a whole like thing going around now about how this person who is still at large, by the way, as we talk on Sunday morning, is like a Democratic operative And this guy is like,
no, he's a part of like the alt-right Christian movement who wants Jesus
and
back.
like, by the way, I don't care what his political affiliation is, because
This too.
the one he really like resonated with, obviously, is the Christian nationalist part, the part where he does not believe that a government that is not a fundamental Christian organization basically should even exist.
Right. They should die.
And as someone who grew up in the evangelical church, ask me another time about Christian nationalism. Anyway.
Oh yeah, 100%. That can be a big topic for another episode for sure. Yeah, it's really gross. And it's like, it's just so sad to me too, because like these people, I was thinking about this in Napa this past week, like all the people working at Carneros, all the people working in the like vineyards in Napa. I'm like, all these people, that entire economy would not exist were it not for immigrants. And what are we doing right now?
Happening.
What I'm talking about is not that funny, I don't think. Oh, we got a pet snafu.
Is Sal okay?
We all
turned
have
the
babies
TV on.
here.
Sal turned the TV on.
Oh, that's awesome. He just wanted to, you know, stay informed. He's an informed
I
buddy.
found our conversation to be not stimulating enough. Oh, you're on mute, girl. You're on mute. You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
This is the part that gets cut once we post it to the views.
That dog said, I'm gonna watch some real news.
Dude, dog is like, I need some goddamn reliable sources.
I listen to these girls yap all damn weekend.
I took that so personally because I was talking. Anyway, I don't even know what I was saying. I think, just like when we were in Napa, like the dichotomy of like driving through, you know, and seeing all the vineyards and like knowing that that whole economy rested on the backs, quite literally, of an immigrant population. And we're just like, bye. It's just wild to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. And there were protests. There's a No Kings protest all around the country yesterday. I know we had quite a few folks come out here in Sacramento, and there were protests up and down the state, certainly.
Where did they protest in Sac, Sam?
Capitol, around the Capitol.
Around the Capitol. Okay. Yeah. Here in SF, they did an amazing like formation on Ocean Beach. Christine was there. I saw her, you know, like tuning in, and they spelled out No King, and it was like incredible. The drone footage is amazing if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. New York had huge protests too.
I'm sure. Were they going up like Fifth Ave, or where were they?
They were started down at Bryant Park, and then just like,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the protests. And like, also, you know, I think like we know what No King means, or like why that's, you know, kind of the rallying cry here. But for our listeners who might not know, why are these protests happening? Why are people saying No King? What is the basis of all this?
Yeah, I mean, you have a administration that's more than happy to militarize the National Guard to target populations who are American citizens in some cases, and disrupt communities to make a political point, right? With no increase in public safety. In fact, the exact opposite.
All while cutting budgets. Yeah. All while saying that there's no funding for things like Medicare.
But spending $140 million on this.
Yeah.
Well, and not to mention that, but spending what, $45 million yesterday for a militarized parade, you know, on behalf of Trump. Which, you know, I saw the videos this morning, seemed to be poorly attended. But so we don't have money for food or school or libraries or healthcare for babies or whatever. We do have $45 million to have a big woo-woo parade that no one sees in New York or where DC. We do have millions and millions of dollars to militarize the National Guard to terrorize elementary schoolers and grandmothers. You know, and these are not democratic decisions. They're not democratic strategies. They do not have any public benefit whatsoever.
And we're pardoning criminals, people who have committed huge crimes, financial crimes. We're pardoning everyone that was involved in the January 6th debacle. Those people were now being told they're heroes.
Yep.
So, I mean,
we're deporting the violent criminals.
That's right. I mean, we are literally raising taxes on American people through tariffs. I mean, taxation without representation. Hello.
100%.
Like, there's many things that this administration is doing, moving to curtail courts, right? Questioning the co-equal branches of the government. And since we have one co-equal branch, Congress, which is just like, like they've just decided like nothing matters. And then you have the courts that are trying in some cases to do things, but they're being questioned very specifically by the president, the vice president, Stephen Miller,
or threatened, right? I mean, lawyers that are representing immigrants are basically being, believed that they are going to be considered aiding and abetting criminals, right? I mean, like,
you have judges being arrested. I mean, it's like it is a fascist state when things like this start happening. So there's many reasons why people are out in the streets, because we do not have kings. We are supposed to be a country with a representative democracy. We are supposed to be a republic. We are supposed to be the United States of America. And it is looking more and more like a banana republic.
A banana republic. I saw the funniest, that just made me think about, like, I saw the funniest meme. It was like the only orange butterfly we want is a monarch or something like that.
The only monarch we want?
Thank you. The only monarch
we want is an orange butterfly.
Orange butterfly. Thank you.
Not whatever we've got.
Yeah, I thought that was hysterical. All the memes that have come out of like everything over the past few days have just been like chef's kiss. But where do we, speaking of like messaging, where do we go from here? And like, how do you ladies think the Democratic and frankly the Republican Party like moves forward from all this? I don't know if the latter party really can at this point, because like they've made it pretty
I don't
clear.
think they're interested in it, and I don't think they see
the Republicans.
Yeah, and I don't think when you talk to a lot of Republicans, not all, but a lot of Republicans, they are like, Trump is doing a great job. He is doing the things that he said he would do. Maybe it would be nice if, he wasn't raiding farms, or if he wasn't taking the undocumented people who work for me. Maybe if he wasn't taking them away and, closing my business. And maybe if his tariffs didn't, procure me from my cute little, like, leisure wear business or whatever
it might be. Yeah.
But by and large, I think Republicans think that he's doing what he said he would do.
Yeah. And he did say he would do these things.
Right? He's doing what Democrats said he would do. He's doing what he said he would do. He's doing what Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and many others said he would do.
They all warned. Or
they all like that.
He said, I'm going to do these things. Democratic leadership said these things are bad that he says he's going to do. Then all of Trump's
friends wrote about how they're going to do it.
And then Trump surrogates said, no, he's not really going to do it. It's going to be fine. And anyway, now he's doing that.
And Trump said he's not going to do that.
So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear.
So, I mean, I think the way forward is that people stay in the street, right? Because what we do know that this president doesn't like is when he's perceived as weak or unpopular, right? That
was the most like gold moment coming out of the parade yesterday. Like there's a snapshot of Trump sitting on like the little janky bleachers that they had around the parade. And he doesn't have his phone and he's just sitting there, and you can tell he just wants to get on his phone and blast out all the tweets.
Well, he probably wants to see what people are saying about his little janky ass parade.
Exactly. And like we all know that Trump becomes, well, he is a child, but like he goes crazy on Twitter or X when he feels insecure. And so he was dying to get on there because he knew it was abysmal.
Right. And I'm sure he had, before he even got there, he was seeing the reports of 50,000 people in New York and thousands and hundreds of thousands, even in Minnesota, where they were like, hey, don't come out.
I saw like 75 in New York.
States might not know there were that many people. You were like, whoa, like even small towns have like 2,000 people coming out
That's right.
to protest, which, yeah. So Adama, in terms of like people continuing to get into the streets, how do we feel? Because I like us three, our group chat, we're often talking about like with the Democratic Party and like the lack of messaging, the lack of cohesion, the lack of strategy. Like, how can the Dems capitalize on this moment if they choose? Like, how can they continue to keep this momentum going? Or do you think it's going to be driven by the people at this point and the parties are just kind of like,
you know, I feel like a former therapist probably rightfully always told me, like, focus on what you do want to happen, not what you don't want to happen. But I'm going to talk anyway, because I'm not really good at listening to therapists, about what is stupid that they're doing, right? Like, what, if I get one more fundraising email or text that's like, hello, it is I, a meme of whomever from the Democratic Party, please give us $5 today to stop Trump. Like, I gave you all my money already. Everyone, we've given you all the money.
My votes, my energy.
And, it's great to get in the streets with the signs, but also, like, for some people it's unsafe, and in some communities it's unsafe, and we don't want to make everyone unsafe. We don't want to instigate violence. And there are politicians on both sides who politicize these, right? They get the Instagram shot, they show up for the photo op, they leave. And
I want to just tell elected officials, stop fucking taking crowd shots at protests. Stop it.
Stop
taking pictures of people.
Well, it's like one of those things, like, having worked in politics for a very long time, maybe you go to an event that's supposed to be very, you're supposed to have reverence, it's solemn, like whatever's going on, and folks want to, get the photo op, and then they just like cozy up and they have a big old cheesy grin, and I'm like, this is not a smile event. This is not a smiling photo. We're not smiling. This is not a car show. This is not something put on by your sorority. Like, it's not cool. So, I think, like, for me, there needs to be a clear strategy with clear leaders and clear action items for people to do. And right now, and where this works, case in point, there were a couple seats in the last election cycle that needed votes cured, right? We wouldn't have kept or flipped seats to Dems if folks had not shown up and cured votes and made sure that votes were counted. And it took weeks and it was tedious. But there was a very clear group of folks who were reaching out to activists and saying, guys, not even activists, just community members. Yeah. Guys, we need help curing votes. We need help making sure people's votes got counted. And it worked and it mattered, right? Yeah. So more direction around things that matter and less rallying the crowds for a photo op. And I'm not saying that at all in any ways with the protests where I think I agree with Adama, like, people need to stay mad. But some people in Democratic leadership use the communal pain of everyone responding to this administration to activate them to donate. And that is a fruitless loop without any clear direction to get out of this sort of like extrajudicial trauma loop that the federal administration is trying to hand down across the state or nation.
Sam, what you're saying is really interesting because that you actually just articulated, I think, what bothered me about what I saw a lot of politicians post after the Senator Padilla debacle. Like, and for anybody who doesn't know, Senator Padilla, he represents California. He used to be the Secretary of State here. He went to ask Kristi Noem, the head of our Department of Homeland Security, a question at this like public forum taking place in like a suburb outside of LA. It wasn't even in like the city of LA. And there was public comment and he was there and he introduced himself as Senator Padilla and was about to ask a question. And then these, armed gentlemen, not gentlemen, they armed
FBI agents.
Yeah, these FBI agents basically like threw him to the ground, put him in handcuffs. Yeah, they threw him to the ground, put him in handcuffs, and threw him out of the room because he wanted to ask a question. And he introduced himself. And they said he lunged at Kristi Noem. They said they didn't know who he was when the first words out of his mouth were, "I'm Senator." And anyway, it was insane.
Also, if you're in law enforcement and you can't recognize the senators from your state and you are on that protective duty,
what the
that
hell are you
special
doing?
duty, because the law enforcement officers, by and large, that are around elected officials are special duty. You know who the U.S. senator is, and if you don't,
not to mention, I mean, I've done advance work before. If you're going in as staff, whether that's the law enforcement side or the political side or the campaign side, you know whose district you're going into. You know if those legislators are in town. And typically, as a token of respect, you would actually reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to have a press conference in your district because we're coming into your space or your, whatever. So there is a 0.0% chance that they didn't already know who he was, that he already wasn't intentionally excluded from whatever the political stunt they were pulling off was. And certainly, even if they were the worst team in the entire world and the worst staff with the least thoughtfulness going into a huge press conference in a U.S. senator's district, he still announced himself by name.
Yeah, very clearly. And what bothered me beyond obviously the just disgusting nature of it all was how after the facts, what you were saying, Sam, like all these Democratic politicians started, they took to social media to post their outrage and their, remorse over what had happened to him. But I'm like, that is what bothers me. Like, it's always a reaction. It's always let's all come together around like this one moment that everybody is paying attention to now. But it's like, where are you when everything leading up to that is happening?
Right. I mean, I think anywhere these people go, they should be questioned, harried, harassed, heckled, booed. I mean, I do. I don't think they should be
When you
able
say
to.
these people, you mean anybody in the Trump administration right now?
Absolutely. I don't think any of them should be able to have a press conference anywhere without being heckled, harassed, booed, questioned heavily. What are those things from the World Cup? Zuzuzuelas? Like, get those out.
Zuzuzuelas.
We all gotta like send those en masse to our
Don't
listeners.
let them talk. Don't let them spread their lies. Don't let them say she came to California.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk her shit.
You're not welcome here. No.
You know what No, and it's if you've ever been in a relationship with, I don't know, a narcissistic gaslighter, which I have, that is what we have as a president, right? Like that is the head of the Republican Party. And that is what they're doing. They are just constantly gaslighting and attacking and cross-sweeping allegations. That is it. And we are the battered girlfriend on the Democratic side of the aisle. It's like, oh no, it's coming. Oh no, girl, you should leave him. No, but
you'll act right next time.
Right. We'll continue to be respectful and thoughtful because let
him have the house. He'll be okay then.
Yeah, just you can get new furniture, boo. It's just a toaster. Like that is what's happening. That is what I feel in my soul right now.
Yeah.
And instead, like, you know what, girl, call the cops, change the locks. I don't know.
Harass, boo, question.
Well, I read a really interesting article at some point in the past week or two about like how all the male leaders right now in our administration, including Trump, like they all had very terrible fathers. And like, I'm like, okay, so we're basically watching a generation with daddy issues ascend.
Yeah, but like, fuck that noise. I had a terrible father. I'm not
100%, but the difference between them and you and me, Adama, well, no, I had a wonderful father, but the difference between women like you who had bad dads and still were able to turn out a decent human being is that you have a backbone.
Fair.
These men don't. Because like, let's be clear, women, regardless of whether we had a bad dad or not, we had to figure out how to navigate this world.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't. These babies didn't.
Yeah.
As we record on Father's Day.
Oh my God. My dad. My dad is a Trump supporter, but I still love him. Anyway, we'll unpack that another time.
We love your dad.
No, he's a great guy. If you're listening to this, Ken, yeah, we might disagree on 90% of things.
Got some dodgy political beliefs, but
that's all right. That's fine. Our dads can hang out. Happy birthday to my dad, who also.
Wow, birthday and Father's Day. Okay.
Or no, sorry, happy Father's Day. You guys, I'm sorry. I have had one cup of coffee. It's not. Which is in, no, it is in 2 weeks. It is in 2 weeks, guys. It is in 2 weeks. It's coming. Happy Father's Day. Soon to be birthday.
Speaking of men who shouldn't be in power, and my firm belief that if women ran the world, we wouldn't have wars. Let's talk about the Middle East and what's going on there. I saw some interesting, exchanges this morning, or kind of responses. Marco Rubio was, talking about how, we were not involved. This was, unilateral.
We had nothing
action.
to do with this.
And then Trump's going, but guys, like, what is happening?
I mean,
are we heading to World War III?
I mean, first of all, our foreign policy right now is.
I mean, I think even using the word policy for one is like a misnomer.
It's like, it feels like it's being made up as we go. Like
it is.
And that is with everything, right? And we as the US took ourselves out of the Iran conversation, right? The nuclear containment situation conversation. Yep. We pulled ourselves out of that. And so now to have our president sit here and be like, oh, I told them, I done told them, I done. Yeah, you did. You told them that you were like hands off. That's what you told them. You told them you were very interested in the Middle East as long as you personally and all of your friends and family could make money in various regions there. And you also told us that you wanted to turn Gaza into a parking lot or like a resort or whatever. And so I don't want to like give hot takes on a centuries old conflict, but what I will say is that while bombs are being thrown back and forth, like, and if you know me, my whole thing is always keep the main thing the main thing. And to me, the main thing is that because of other bombs that Israel threw, which granted, what happened with the terrorist attacks several years ago was absolutely unacceptable. But I feel there comes a point where the response is no longer proportional. And right now in Gaza, there is an unspeakable humanitarian crisis that while everybody is looking over here, that continues, and food still is not getting in. Israel's still not letting food get in. Children are starving. Yeah. And so like all of these things are happening at the same time. And it feels to me like this is a way to turn people's eyes away from a enormous humanitarian crisis by creating manufacturing and perpetuating another one that our government can't get its hands out of and also won't stop funding. So like
other governments won't get their hands out of, right? I mean, the more unrest that is there, the more up for grabs political and financial opportunities in the regions are. And that's why that area has always been ripe for military confrontation, right? I mean, you have like huge implications for oil markets and strategic alliances and the integrity of diplomacy and democracy. And frankly, unrest in that region, as it persists, helps folks like Russia.
Yep.
So,
yeah. And we're also getting closer and closer to a situation where with the security council, things are going to spin further and further out of control as it comes to our international policy. And we're, again, have taken ourselves out of so many of these conversations. Yeah. And it is incredibly frustrating then to watch the Secretary of State lie, maybe, I don't know, and say we had no idea, and have the president like basically take credit for it. Really, really frustrating.
Yeah, and terrifying because everything unfolding right now. And like all it takes is one more attack, one more leader murdered deliberately or undeliberately, and we could have World War III.
And I cannot tell you, I don't know if Iran does have nuclear weapons or enriched materials or whatever, but I know who does. We know who does, and we know how they got them, and we know who gave them to them.
All right, time check, ladies. We're 7 to 9.
We are 44 minutes and 33 seconds into this.
Wow, guys, we can talk forever. Well, yeah, on that somber note, let's hope by the time we do this next week, World War III has not broken out. Maybe we switch and start talking about things we liked this week. So we thought we would leave our listeners with recommendations because self-care is equally important to being informed. So some items that we have used over the past week that we love. We'll share those with you ladies, and then we'll share some tips going into the week in terms of how we're choosing ourselves first. So I guess I'll start. Well, as I was talking earlier about my lovely trip to Napa, something that I bought this week after many glasses of wine was a membership to Duckhorn Family Wines. Are you a member, Adama?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, of course you remember, because I remember, I'll never forget this photo you sent me of you there with like a case of wine after.
Oh God, was that cursed trip that I was on with you?
I think we were together.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it was hysterical. And I actually had not been to Duckhorn until Adama sent me this like hysterical photo of her. Like, it was like your child. You were so like proud of it. You were like caressing it like this, your little case of wine.
I mean, I was 3 sheets.
And then she promptly almost left it in her Uber when she got home.
The Uber driver who could not wait to get me out of his car, let me tell you.
Yeah, your freaking wine. I'm surprised he didn't actually drive away with it. But yeah, we went to Duckhorn this past week, and we actually started at Paradox. Have you guys been to Paradox?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Had not been. They just redid it. Like the whole property. It's gorgeous. So we started there, loved it, and then we were convinced to join, and we went to Duckhorn. And yeah, the wines are excellent. I am not normally a Merlot girly, but oh my God, Duckhorn's Merlot, fantastic. So that's what I bought and liked this week. Sam, what about you?
So as we discussed last week, Adama and I were in Europe for a few days, and one of the things that is just outstanding about France, and in particular Paris, but also other major cities like Bordeaux, are their pharmacies, which have just the hands down best pharmaceutical grade skin products that we cannot get here, or even if we can get some version of them, the American version is usually allowed to have like a bunch of toxic, disgusting fillers that are not great for your face. Or now with tariffs, it's $100 million. And so some places won't send. Anyway, I am not a big makeup girly. Like, it's hard to do a lot of makeup on a ginger. There's a lot of freckles. There's things happening. Like, there's just a lot of things. Like, anyway, but I, like many gingers, get also very red. Like, just whole face. And so I found this red corrector. It's from Herboian. It's actually Korean, and it's interesting because Korean skincare is renowned for its excellence. And so one of the only things you'll find in a French pharmacy that is not French is Korean. I would argue it's similarly to how the French should feel about Irish butter. It is the only superior butter. This may be the only superior red corrector. Anyway, CC Red Correct. And you just, when I first put it on in the store to test it, we probably have a photo of this somewhere too. It like came on as a green cast. Like, I looked like the Incredible Hulk for about 3 minutes, and I put on way too much, and we're just in the middle of this store while I'm literally mincing. But then, like 4 minutes later, it all absorbed, and my complexion was perfect, and we were in awe. So anyway, I bought it. I should have bought 2.
You need to like, we need to take the photo, like a progression of like.
Oh my God, we have the photo.
Oh yeah, no, I look utterly horrified in it too.
I'm like, share the photos. They're really funny.
Awesome. I love it. All right, a red corrector. Good tip. Adama, what about you?
Well, this just because we were talking yesterday, and Sam was like, she was in her office, and she was like, oh, I'm eating chips, because there's always like whatever chips in her office or whatever. And I was like, oh, you got to try these things. And this is not like, none of these are ads. Let me be clear. Nobody cares. Like,
we are not sponsored.
But you could, if you want to sponsor us, we. Anyway.
Fair. But I started eating these. They're like lupini beans, and I meant to like look up what these actually are, because I still really don't know. But I think they are like the raw version of what corn nuts are, like those super crunchy little nut, like
I
the
looked at the
dehydrated ones.
nutrition list and it was just like lupini beans. And I'm like, okay, but what is like, so anyway, we need to.
It's
I just
literally
love
just
what
like
you just said. Like, I've been eating these things. I don't really know what they are.
But they're Italian, so it's fine.
It can kill me.
probably. But like I literally buy these by like the case on Amazon. They're so delicious.
You and
And
your
they're
cases, your
super high
beans, your
protein.
wine.
Yeah, they're like really high protein snacks. They look like I don't know.
They're shiny. They look like a
Yeah,
jelly.
they're like
I
they're like
expected them to be more like a fava bean or something.
know
Like
that.
I mean, they kind of are. They're not unlike that. Like they're not unlike a white bean,
They
I
look
don't,
like those beads you make necklaces out of.
yeah, I mean, but like anyway, yeah, you can like eat the whole thing. They're super high protein.
I like that you just gave a demonstration of how to eat.
It's not gonna kill me.
In case you don't know how to eat, here you go.
You can't choke on camera now, okay? Please. Those are a choking hazard.
They probably are. I should stop. But anyway, these
Just
are
Mama just throws one right in the back of her throat, just takes her out.
Barami lupini. I just like saying it. Okay. All right. Those are our faves of the week. I love it. What about, okay, so as we wrap heading into the week, our mantra is on this show is choose yourself first, ladies. And like let's talk a little bit about what that means before we talk about, like how we're planning to choose ourselves first this week. Sam, you had actually put into very eloquent words, maybe with some help from ChatGPT, I don't know, about like what we mean by choose yourself first. I'd love to hear your take on that, and then how you are choosing yourself first going into this week. And then, yeah, Adama and I can share how we're planning to too.
Oh my God, I don't know that I have eloquence this morning to describe it. I'm like, I wish I knew what you had thought was eloquent, then I would say it again.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I can
it comes out of my mouth, Maddie.
Go for it. And then I'm happy to chime in.
Oh God, I don't know. I think for women in particular, we have an environment where we're constantly having things put on our plates, right? Whether or not we've asked for them, they're constantly loaded on there. The emotional labor, the physical labor, the mental labor of, running a household, running a family, and then that extends itself into the workplace, right? We are asked to do more work and more administrative work for less money. And so you sort of have all of these conditions set up, plus all of the expectations on women, like look pretty, be thin, talk a certain way, be a certain way with men, be at a certain place in your life with children and family and husbands. And it's just very overwhelming. And so, the idea that you have to take a step back from all of that and not just, to quote Adama, careen from sort of disaster to disaster or pressure to pressure, and really focus on yourself and what you want and what you think without all of those burdens and distractions is so important for mental and physical health. So I have no idea if that's what I said before.
That was beautifully said. Are you kidding? Yeah. So how Sam, and whether it's this week or like in general, how do you strive to choose yourself first? What's like a tip you would give our listeners?
So I say all of that, and then it's interesting. I think the Kristen episode just posted, but reminded me a couple of years ago I went through an exercise tracking my time, like where and how I spending my time and on what projects and how much time, because I felt like I could never get through any particular project. I was just perpetually exhausted, and I felt like I was letting everyone down. So I had to take an accounting, go back through, and sort of pare down the things that didn't even make sense for me to do. Either because they weren't a good use of my time monetarily, like case in point, I don't do my own laundry anymore, or because, it's something I just felt obligated to do in a work context or a personal context, and I needed to just stop. I could just stop. Like the only person that was making me do that was me. And so I have been going back through that accounting. So now that we're back in the country and I am moved, albeit not unpacked, just really trying to make sure that my calendar and how I spend my time reflects the things that I want to prioritize. That is my that is what we're working on. And then, and then I'm going to get my nails done. So
I love, getting a manicure.
The lighter side.
Getting manicure is always a great act of self-care for me as well. Adama, how about you go next, and then I'll close this out.
I feel like we talked about this, and I can't remember what I thought I was gonna say, but I mean, honestly, things are really crazy right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like you find yourself doom scrolling, doing the doom scroll. And I doom scroll, like, let me be clear. I doom scroll and I like doom share and like
totally. We all do.
You give the most friend homework of all my friends.
For sure. For sure. Like I feel like for a while I'd actually gotten off of Instagram completely. Like
I did too.
I had like broken myself from the like every morning checking and doing that. But part of like us having this podcast and wanting to like, know what to talk about and what is out there and have people know about us and things like that, I've kind of gotten back into it. And I realized like I got to cut back on it, especially with how bad things are right now.
Yeah.
Like it's like the double whammy because like I work in politics. So like I have to hear about it. I have to live it. I have to like make money in it and around it. And so like I have got to figure out like how not to just be consumed by it. So that is my like
that's very real.
Choosing myself first thing this week. I've got to cut back on Instagram, and I've got to also like I've been slowly trying to like cure my algorithm so it's not just all the like breaking news. Here's the, the immediate like cortisol spike where you're just stressed the minute you open the app. Like I would like more about like fun historical period dresses and like more about like F1 and like more about just other things that are not going to immediately remind me of how dark I feel like it is. Because the other thing I know is that I saw this thing and it was like, if you are a conservative, here's what your media looks like. And it's like, things are going good, right? Like
you live in different realities.
Illegals out and like cutting all this excess fat and waste from the government, get all these lazy government workers out of here. And like, and it looks good, right? And then on our side, it's like foster children are being ripped away from foster parents and deported, and
the world's falling apart.
Yeah. And so like I have to figure out how not to have either of those dichotomies, which are not completely the truth, right?
Yeah.
I've got to figure out how to find that middle ground where I can still feel like I am knowledgeable, where I still am energized enough to be like, yeah, I need to be protesting. I need to be calling my legislators. I need to be writing these letters. I need to be emailing these fools. How do I do that?
That like it's so true. And when we were talking about my father earlier, I'm driving home later today and I'm gonna see him and my mom, and it's interesting because like they are both Republican, and like I used to be up until like 5-6 years ago, like a staunch Republican myself. And the reason that I'm still frankly able to love them, respect them, and have conversations with them about things is because I recognize that dichotomy you were just describing, Adama, where like they are fed media that paints the world a certain way, and I am fed media that paints it a different way. And we both are on like different planes. And it's sad to me. And I do make an effort to like, I don't like Fox News. I don't like Joe Rogan. I don't like Laura Ingraham or all those people. But I do make an effort to just like understand, what are they saying? Or like, how do they see the world? Because the truth is always somewhere in the middle. And reality is usually a combination of like many, truths, right? Which in terms of like how I choose myself first, as we wrap, I would say, like something that I've done, because I actually took like an 8-month break from Instagram. After our wedding last year, I deleted it. And I don't know, I felt like I was just burnt out because like there's like such pressure on women, especially when you're getting married and like all that, to be like sharing every like glitzy glam moment. And it just like at some point I was like, I'm exhausted. And politically the atmosphere was very charged too leading up to the election. So I deleted it. And then when we decided to start this podcast and go out into the world, the virtual world, I was like, okay, well, I have to like be back on socials and I have to be active and paying attention. But I've set limits on all the apps. So like every day, I think it's like 15 or 20 minutes on TikTok and Instagram, because those are the two main social media platforms I use. And every time it notifies me, you're about to hit your limit, I'm like, okay, done. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. And actually, the app that I love to use for like positive inspiration and fun is Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I get so much design. I love interior design. I don't love cooking, but I love getting recipes to send my husband to cook. I love like getting fashion inspiration, like outfits I'm going to wear to work. And so that's my plug actually, is like, if you like to get like visually inspired and like stimulated, go on Pinterest and have the algorithm learn you, because it feeds you nothing but like healthy, positive, like for you content. So yeah, plug for Pinterest.
I like that.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back next Sunday, and drop us a comment, whether you tuned in live or after the fact. We'd love feedback. We'd love to know what you want to hear about. Anything burning. Not literally, but maybe literally. And yeah, we'll see you next Sunday.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.